Lovely to be with you. As Gary was saying, if you haven't heard me speak before, Director of Giving for the Church of England, but also part of the reason I'm here today is I'm a member of PCC of Ipswich Minster. So I live on the Shotley Peninsula, and we're going to be talking about extraordinary way, actually, that God works through and address the financial challenges that we had. But more of that in a second. The first thing I wanted to talk about was a resource which is freely available on the Church of England website called Living Generously. So if we could, I'm guessing if I do that, hey, there we go. That would help. Okay, so if you're into QR codes, we're not into QR codes. Anyway, but if you are, if you happen to be in, that QR code, if I've mastered the technology, that, I should say, is a big if, should take you to a Church of England page on the main Church of England website, which has the Living Generously films on it. So if it works and you use it, and click on it. Please don't click on the films because they'll start playing and then surround sound of the different films that we've got. But I'm sure these will be coming as a handout later on. So if you want to go and look at that part of the Church of England website, then please do. Bishop Graham was talking, I think Grant was talking earlier about for God so loved the world that he gave. And I've just noticed above that PowerPoint projector, that's the opening line. There's the first line. For God so loved the world that he gave. What a great venue to go and have to talking about living generously. So, what is the Living Generously films? So, back in the day, we were talking, Bishop Graham was talking earlier on, about the different forms of fundraising. And one of the stories that I have loved since I was a child is about Mary anointing Jesus' feet, and how extraordinary a story that is. Extraordinary in lots of different ways, and it's certainly extraordinary in terms of generosity, and how it is an amazing story in the Bible of how a disciple of Christ lived a generous life. So if we want a role model, if we want an inspiration for how we live generously, I think it's a perfect story to go and work on. So when I was working for the Diocese of Oxford, I wrote some reflections on it and how I thought it explored 7 different ways to live a generous life in one act. This one act in one verse out of 30,000, and it talks about living generously in 7 different ways. So, assuming I've got this technology right this time around as well, I'm just going to play a 90-second trailer of the films, which explains a little bit about what's in them. I have to say, I've done this before, and I vowed never to do it again because it is the weirdest thing in the world presenting about a film series that you're the presenter on and watching yourself. Because I can't... Because everything in me is like, why don't I just say it rather than you watch a film? I'm literally here. There isn't a reason. But the reason I'm doing it is, ignore me, it's to showcase the incredibly high production values of the company that put it together, which is Right Now Media. If you've ever come across them, Right Now Media are an American company. They describe themselves correctly as the Christian Netflix. They have, I think it's over 25,000 discipleship courses, filmed discipleship courses available on their platform. And it has an incredible reach all the way across the world. One of the perks of working with them is they send you lovely infographics telling you how many people have gone and watched your films in different countries all over the world. It's quite an amazing thing. But anyway, they do trailers, which go and introduce the films to people. So, as I say, let's see if we can get the technology to work. Oh, that transition's good, isn't it? By the way, that's pretty good.
In John's Gospel, we read the story where Mary took a pound of costly perfume, anointed Jesus' feet, and wiped them with her hair. This has always been a favourite story of mine, and it's a real joy to be able to explore this story with you in this 8-part series, Living Generously. So much for us to learn and so much to be inspired by. In this simple act, Mary shows us 7 different ways to live generously. And as Jesus says, wherever the good news is proclaimed in the whole world, what she has done will be told in remembrance of her. This story is profoundly good news for us. It is the story of how a love for God enabled a disciple of Christ to live a generous life. And the wonder of the gospel is that this can be our story too.
Yep, still weird watching it when you're standing on stage. But anyway, hopefully it gives you an introduction into the films. The trailers are very useful if you want to do people on your PCC, for example, or if you've got a giving or stewardship committee and they want to know a little bit more. The trailer is a useful intro to that. So what is it? So it's a series of 8 films. They are all about 7 minutes long, 7 to 8 minutes long, something like that. And each of the films explores 7 generosities, and then there's a wrap-up session at the end. So it explores the generosities are generous with time. Clearly, Mary was generous with her time. There were plenty of other things that she could have done. She chose to do that. It's one of the ways that we can live as disciples, by being generous with our time. But she's also generous with her attention. One of my favourite parts of this story is that she used nard and to go and anoint Jesus' feet. And I can still remember doing a children's talk, and we took along some nard. If you've ever smelt nard, wow. It's a powerful, powerful smell and aroma. It is used as a burial ointment for a reason. And it's incredible. But the message that she was sending, as Jesus went and said later, she's preparing my body for its burial. And so there is an attentiveness to what Mary does, which is remarkable. It isn't just about the time. It's about the attentiveness of the perfume that she chooses. Of course, she's generous with her wealth. Yes, extraordinarily so. It was a year's wages. It's an incredible amount of money. I remember reading about Judas and the 30 pieces of silver. This was at least twice as generous as that. It's an incredible, generous act in terms of her wealth and how she went and used it. But she was also generous with her talents. That wonderful thing about, but what do I do? But what can I do? I have a talent, I have an ability, let's go and use it. Generous with her possessions as well. She was criticized for the fact that she was using something that was treasured, and yet she was willing to go and give it away. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the power of that possession. And she was also generous with how we're perceived. There's a great icon of Mary anointing Jesus' feet with the disciples scowling around the corner. It's like, what are you doing? You are breaking all the rules. And actually having the courage to go and do what we believe to be right, even if people misunderstand us, is a generosity all of its own. And finally, she was generous with comfort. She got down in the dust. She got down in the dirt. She took on the role and the position of a servant. So in that one story, that one act, she is generous in 7 different ways. And each of the films explores those 7 different generosities. And then the final one, it says, if your eyesight's super, super good, it says generosity webs. So there is, basically what that does is it's a tool which enables people to reflect on those 7 generosities and to think about which ones they feel comfortable with. Not good at. Which ones are they comfortable with? And then it's a prayerful kind of reflective exercise to go and think, is God nudging me in terms of these different generosities? Is there a generosity that God is encouraging me to go and develop and to grow in my life. So those are the films. Because Right Now Media are Whizzy, they have also gone and created group materials. So if you've got small groups, there are fantastic handouts with a whole series of questions on each of the different films, which enable people to unpack them and to explore them and to debate and to discuss. So there's lots of great reflective tools in those handouts as well. And all of this is freely available on the Church of England website. So you can go and download the films there. You can download all the study guides also. So it is all available for you there. So please, if you want to go and find out more, as I say, when the handout goes around, if you haven't got the QR code, there's information on it there. But a final request from it, we would love your feedback. Because one of the things when we were looking at how can we best resource the church, how can the national church best resource and go and encourage generosity, there was a paucity of discipleship resources out there. So if you've got any thoughts in terms of these materials, could we have made it better? Is it too long? Is it too short? Does it need to be broader? We would love to go and have that feedback because films on the Right Now Media platform have landed really well. They're very keen to go and do more. It's a great way for the Church of England to go and get a resource at a fraction of the normal cost. So we're keen to do more, but the feedback would be absolutely fantastic. But hopefully that has whetted your appetite and will encourage you to go and have a look. So that's the first part of the session. Next, Tom, could you come up for it, please? And we just want to talk about what they put on the Church of England website. That sounds great, doesn't it? How we cleared a 30,000 deficit in 1 month. So again, if you are a QR code lover, and again, if I've got the technology right, that should go and take you to that relevant page. But Tom, do you want to set the scene first in terms of the challenges that we had and where you've taken the church from?
Yeah. Firstly, Jonathan, can I say what an honour it is to be on the stage with a film star? And it's so tempting to do a little Backstreet Boys kind of moment, get up off the stools.
Yeah, we could do that.
I just want to start firstly by saying that I'm not an expert and I'm not getting on this stage, particularly to kind of fellow incumbents out there, to say that, in any way to try and kind of pontificate about how to do this sort of stuff. Jonathan is the expert. There is a huge amount of experience and knowledge out there, and I simply just want to kind of tell my story as I experienced it as the incumbent of St Mary Le Tower. So I started in October 2021. I was appointed by Bishop Martin on an interim licence for 3 years. Things were a really low ebb. Many of the senior staff in the diocese will know as much about that as I did at the time. When I got in there, we knew that things were really difficult pastorally, financially, in regards to the civic links. And the reason why I was put on an interim licence is because the finances were so challenging that they weren't even sure that we could properly fund an incumbent ongoing in this church. And so anyway, so I came in knowing it was difficult, and in the first week I realised actually it was a lot worse than anyone else had told me, and I think even the diocese realised. There wasn't even a treasurer in post, and once I managed to strong-arm essentially somebody into doing that, and I fully recommend physicality at trying to get treasurers, by the way. Once I managed to get somebody to do that role, we then uncovered after a bit of trying to work out quite what the difficulty was, that we had about an operating deficit of about £90,000 a year. That was quite terrifying because the historic reserves that the church was very lucky to have, the generosity of previous generations, probably had a couple of years to go, and then it was that was kind of, well, it was game over really, and I was very conscious, having just moved me and my soon-to-be wife at that point into a new place. I wanted to stay. I really believed in the ministry of this particular parish, so we had a job to do, and we began by I began by realising that trust was extraordinarily low. There was expenditure going out in all kinds of places. Some people had lost trust so much that they began to give directly to the diocese rather than give to the PCC, which I thought was quite shocking, really. And so we had to kind of listen very carefully, to spend time, and to crucially try to discern what it was that God was trying to call us, was calling us to do in that place. And because of the restrictions of my licence, having to get on with it probably quicker than I would have done if I'd had a bit more time, we got straight on to trying to do that listening process. And so we began to, using the kind of language of the Church of England, the sort of vision and strategy process, but fundamentally what it was trying to discern what it was that God was calling us to do in that place. So after a couple of months of being there, getting a treasury in place, getting a real sense of how difficult it was financially as well, particularly, I took the PCC away for an away day. We did some facilitated stuff. I could talk more about that on a different time. But then went back to the congregation, went back to the town and asked two questions. What type of church do you want to be a part of in 5 years' time? And what sort of church do you think Ipswich needs? And we went out to whole loads of people, invited all sorts of responses, and then a smaller group of us sat down and really tried to sift through that prayerfully to get a sense, okay, where is God's voice in all of this? And then we set out a kind of pithy little booklet and tried to we launched it on Easter Day in 2022 with all the kind of resonance and of new life and resurrection deliberately put in there. And then we tried to set this out. The reason why I tell you that part of the story is because I think we were almost forced to be really, really explicit about what we wanted to do and what we wanted to be a part of. We were forced to be really, really explicit about trying to discern and then articulate what we had discerned that God was calling us to do. And I think that then gave us a platform, it gave us a sense of momentum, it gave us a sense of energy and excitement and vision for people to be a part of, for people to join into, and just a sense of the kind of path that we might be walking. Very crucially, not the path that we chose to, because trust me, there are things in that plan that wouldn't have been something, A, that I want to do, or B, that I would have said from the beginning we should have been doing. So very much something that is intentionally discerned as God's will and not ours. And then we began to follow that. Getting back over onto the finances, in the first couple of years, we managed to reduce our deficit by 2/3. That was through one, trying to change one of the buildings that the church had in its use into something that was, instead of draining money, actually generating some income. So we were very lucky, and that really happened through a chance conversation with me and a community leader. I was ready, after doing as much effort as possible to try and get some money out of this building, actually just ready to sell it. I mean, and feeling like a failure in doing so at that point. And just one coffee with a local community leader of a charity, realised actually they were looking for something, we had something, and then after a while we managed to put something together, and now remarkably it's worked. And so I would go back to that good old-fashioned traditional parish ministry of presence and relationship. Like I promise you, we are doing, and we have not done anything whizzy or new. This is just regular parish ministry, I think, and I hope done well. So that was 1/3. The other third, then, once we managed to articulate this sense of vision, I then felt we could go back to the congregation and say, look, this is the church that you want to be a part of. This is what we feel we've discerned God is calling us to do. So let's get behind this. It gave them that sense of confidence, and that began to kind of turn around the giving. I was very lucky about 18 months in that, in fact, I found out that Jonathan had recently moved into the area and that he worked and he had some ideas about fundraising, and I still had quite a lot of more money to raise just to get us back to an operational basis without running out of cash. And so I invited Jonathan round for a coffee in the garden and told him all these things. I said, please give me this advice. Well, I'm joking aside, and many of the other incumbents and members of PCC will know about this, the finance stuff really keeps you awake at night. And I was so aware with my licence that I could be out of my home, I could be out of the area. I'd feared and looked like an enormous failure, which plays on everybody's sense of self. so this stuff, this can be really serious. Anyway, I invited Jonathan along, and in fact, I invited Jonathan to church because I knew he hadn't really found a home yet. And gratefully, after 18 months of me being there, Jonathan joined the PCC, and he'll talk about his kind of expertise coming in for that last bit. But just to take us to the story to where we get to this rather ridiculous headline from the Church of England website. November last year, so we managed to reduce our operating deficit from 90,000 down to 60,000 a year, and I really want to say there that I really did not want to start cutting back and reducing our ministry. I really believed in that we were spending money on the right stuff. We made 2 people redundant early on there. We made proper cutbacks and savings, and we're very, very careful. But I was really conscious that if we cut any further, all we were doing was managing decline. And I frankly would rather resign than do that. So this was a risky strategy. Thank you. Anyway, so we got to November last year. We were looking at our finances. We reduced by 2/3. We still had 30,000 to go. But the cost of living had started to go up. The staff cost rises started to go up. All of those things that everybody else here knows are facing. And so actually it began to go the other way, and it was getting really nervous. And our finance committee were sat around the table. And I said, well, why don't we just try and raise £30,000 in the next month? And they were sort of like, oh, okay. And I said, I think we can really do this. You know, come on, Jonathan, let's put together and get a strategy. Let's run. And so Jonathan came up with a strategy, which we exercised. And I was adamant. I said, we're really going to do this. But secretly inside was thinking, there's absolutely no way we're going to do this. But Jonathan now will, sorry, Lucy, within 3 or 4 minutes, tell us quite how we managed to do that.
That's brilliant, Tom. It's such an important context to it all. Yeah, just to finish off Tom's story, though, so he absolutely, Tom said, I think we can do this, I think we can do this. And then we started talking about how do we explain to the congregation, and Tom said, I think you should do it, Jonathan. Well, that was absolutely right. That's not actually true. I thought it was very important that we as a PCC owned it. And we owned the situation, and that we explained it to our fellow congregant members where we were at. So where we got to, but there is something quite terrifying, frankly, of standing up in front of a congregation and saying, I think the phrase I used was, we're in a bit of a pickle. I think that was...
Which they knew already. Yeah. I mean, they were very aware of that.
But I decided not to overwhelm them with technical financial jargon, but just explain the situation. And so this is where we're at, that if we make this deficit of 34,000, that will mean within 12 months we will be in a position where we're going to have to start cutting back ministry. There is no more money available. And so I explained it saying, okay, so what do we need? If everybody who gives us £200 more than they're currently giving, we'll clear that deficit. And then explain what that was by month, by week, by day. I then went on to go and say, but most of us can't afford to give another £200. So some of us are going to have to give a lot more than that. So it was framing it within a context of this is achievable, but actually, let's be clear, for some of us, we can give an average value, but for some of us, we're going to need to give considerably more. And it was just beyond joyful that the Sunday before Christmas, wasn't it? We were able to tell the congregation that we'd raised £34,000. We hadn't raised it, they'd given it. And it was the most extraordinary, humbling and wonderful thing to go and see that God can do extraordinary things, just incredible things. And as a finance committee, I think we saw it, we named the issue, we knew the scale of the challenge, but it was solely due to the incredible way that God worked through the congregation and released these unbelievable amounts of generosity. We learned so much about it, and one of them is never, ever predict and anticipate. I think we can be really good at closing people down, saying they can't give. Oh no, they won't, or they're already giving as much as they can go and give. People are full of surprises. And that was definitely something we learned about. But when we were looking at, sorry, I promised we'd finish on time and I haven't. Okay, so but on the page there, there are 21 reflections on things which influence why we think they were factors in terms of why it works. 21 makes it sound like it's hugely onerous and difficult. It's not. It's about, most of that is about the way we talked. It's the way that we communicated it. It's the way that we explained it. It was built on solid foundations, but actually we talked very, very simply. We made it so it was attainable, that people could feel it was manageable. And one of the things, just a couple of final things in terms of how the congregation responded. One of them was, I heard several times people said to me, "You've never asked us for this before." We shared the problem in that way, and we said, look, this is where we're at. This is where we're at. And the other thing that the feedback we've got is, well, clearly this isn't going to work. Clearly it's not going to work. It's good of you to share, but it's not going to work. And so the pure joy of every Sunday, a different member of the PCC would stand up and say, this is how much money is being given. And you could see it turn. You could see it as people started to realise something amazing is happening here. And that was a remarkable and a wonderful thing. And I put in the article at the end of the last thing, we prayed about this so much. And we prayed about it at the time when we were talking about it. And it became central to that, interwoven, that it became a key part of the prayer life of the church, was that God would release that generosity to enable us to go and break even. So that was, we just wanted to share that story just as an encouragement. We were just a very ordinary PCC, frightened, to be honest, about what we had in front of us, but to encourage. Our story is that God can do incredible things, and that we have extraordinarily generous people in our churches who love God and love God's church and its mission and ministry. So please be encouraged.